School corporal punishment refers to causing deliberate pain or discomfort in response to undesired behavior by students in schools. It often involves striking the student either across the buttocks or on the hands with an implement such as a rattan cane, wooden paddle, slipper, leather strap, or wooden yardstick. Less commonly, it could also include spanking or smacking the student with the open hand, especially at the elementary school level. In the English-speaking world, the use by schools of corporal punishment has historically been justified by the common law doctrine in loco parentis, whereby teachers are considered authority figures granted the same rights as parents to punish children in their care. Advocates of school corporal punishment argue that it provides an immediate response to indiscipline and that the student is quickly back in the classroom learning, as opposed to suspension from school. Opponents, including a number of medical and psychological societies, along with human rights groups, argue that physical punishment is ineffective in the long term, interferes with learning, leads to antisocial behavior as well as various forms of mental distress, and is a form of violence that breaches the rights of children. Poland in 1783 was the first nation to outlaw corporal punishment in schools. School corporal punishment is no longer practiced in any European country. As of 2015, most developed countries have abolished the practice, with the exception of some parts of the United States, some Australian states, and Singapore. It is still in common use in a number of countries in Africa and Asia. It was banned in state-funded schools throughout the United Kingdom in 1986. It was banned in UK public and private schools that received no state funding in 1999 for England and Wales, 2000 in Scotland, and 2003 in Northern Ireland. Definitions. Corporal punishment in the context of schools in the late 20th and early 21st centuries has been variously defined as causing deliberate pain to a child in response to the child's undesired behavior and/or language, purposeful infliction of bodily pain or discomfort by an official in the educational system upon a student as a penalty for unacceptable behavior, and intentional application of physical pain as a means of changing behavior. Prevalence. Corporal punishment used to be prevalent in schools in many parts of the world, but in recent decades it has been outlawed in most of Europe, most of South America, as well as in Canada, Korea, South Africa, New Zealand and several other countries. It remains commonplace in a number of countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East. While most U.S. states have outlawed corporal punishment in state schools, it continues to be allowed mainly in the southern and western United States. According to the United States Department of Education, more than 216,000 students were subjected to corporal punishment during the 2008-09 school year. School corporal punishment is no longer practiced in any European country. Much of the traditional culture that surrounds corporal punishment in school, at any rate in the English-speaking world, derives largely from British practice in the 19th and 20th centuries, particularly as regards the caning of teenage boys. There is a vast amount of literature on this, in both popular and serious culture. Britain itself outlawed the practice in 1987 for state schools and more recently for all schools. The doctrine of in loco parentis lets school officials stand in for parents as comparable authority figures. The doctrine has its origins in an English common law precedent of 1770. Many schools in Singapore and Malaysia use caning as a routine official punishment for misconduct, as also some African countries. In some Middle Eastern countries whipping is used. In most of continental Europe, school corporal punishment has been banned for several decades or longer, depending on the country. For the 1917 Russian Revolution onwards, corporal punishment was outlawed in the Soviet Union, because it was deemed contrary to Soviet ideology. Communists in other countries such as Britain took the lead in campaigning against school corporal punishment, which they viewed as a symptom of the decadence of capitalist education systems. In the 1960s, Soviet visitors to Western schools expressed shock at the caning of boys there. Other communist regimes followed suit. For instance, corporal punishment was unknown by students in North Korea in 2007. In mainland China, corporal punishment in schools was outlawed in 1986, although the practice remains common, especially in rural areas. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, there are three broad rationales for the use of corporal punishment in schools. Beliefs, based in traditional religion, that adults have a right, if not a duty, to physically punish misbehaving children, a disciplinary philosophy that corporal punishment builds character, being necessary for the development of a child's conscience and the respect for adult authority figures, and beliefs concerning the needs and rights of teachers, specifically that corporal punishment is essential for maintaining order and control in the classroom. Effects on students. School officials and policy makers often rely on personal anecdotes to argue that school corporal punishment improves students' behavior and achievement. However, there is a lack of empirical evidence showing that corporal punishment leads to better control in the classroom. In particular, evidence does not suggest that it enhances moral character development, increases students' respect for teachers or other authority figures, or offers greater security for teachers. A number of medical, pediatric and psychological societies have issued statements opposing all corporal punishment in schools, citing such outcomes as poorer academic achievement, increases in antisocial behavior, injuries to students, and an unwelcoming learning environment. They include the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Society for Adolescent Medicine, the American Psychological Association, the Royal College of Pediatrics and Child Health, the Royal College of Psychiatrists, the Canadian Pediatrics Society and the Australian Psychological Society, as well as the United States' National Association of Secondary School Principals. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, research shows that corporal punishment is less effective than other methods of behavior management in schools, and praise discussions regarding values and positive role models do more to develop character, respect, and values than does corporal punishment. They say that evidence links corporal punishment of students to a number of adverse outcomes, including increased aggressive and destructive behavior, increased disruptive classroom behavior, vandalism, poor school achievement, poor attention span, increased dropout rate, school avoidance and school phobia, low self-esteem, anxiety, somatic complaints, depression, suicide and retaliation against teachers. The AAP recommends a number of alternatives to corporal punishment, including various non-violent behavior management strategies, modifications to the school environment, and increased support for teachers. Injuries to students. An estimated 1 to 2% of physically punished students in the United States are seriously injured, to the point of needing medical attention. According to the AAP and the Society for Adolescent Medicine, these injuries have included bruises, abrasions, broken bones, whiplash injury, muscle damage, brain injury, and even death. Other reported injuries to students include sciatic nerve damage, extensive hematomas, and life-threatening fat hemorrhage. Promotion of violence. The AAP cautions that there is a risk of corporal punishment in schools schools, fostering the impression among students that violence is an appropriate means for managing others' behavior. According to the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, corporal punishment signals to the child that a way to settle interpersonal conflicts is to use physical force and inflict pain. And according to the Society for Adolescent Medicine, the use of corporal punishment in schools promotes a very precarious message that violence is an acceptable phenomenon in our society. It sanctions the notion that it is meritorious to be violent toward our children, thereby devaluing them in society's eyes. It encourages children to resort to violence because they see their authority figures as substitute parents doing it. Violence is not acceptable, and we must not support it by sanctioning its use by such authority figures as school officials. Alternatives. The Society for Adolescent Medicine recommends developing a milieu of effective communication, in which the teacher displays an attitude of respect for the students, as well as instruction that is stimulating and appropriate to students' abilities. Various non-violent behavior modification techniques, and involving students and parents in making decisions about school matters such as rules and educational goals. They suggest that student self-governance can be an effective alternative for managing disruptive classroom behavior, while stressing the importance of adequate training and support for teachers. The AAP remarks that there has been no reported increase in disciplinary problems in schools following the elimination of corporal punishment, according to evidence. Student rights. A number of international human rights organizations, including the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, have stated that physical punishment of any kind is a violation of children's human rights. According to the Committee on the Rights of the Child, children do not lose their human rights by virtue of passing through the school gates. The use of corporal punishment does not respect the inherent dignity of the child nor the strict limits on school discipline. The committee interprets Article 19 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which obliges member states to take all appropriate legislative, administrative, social and educational measures to protect the child from all forms of physical or mental violence, injury or abuse while in the care of parent, legal guardian or any other person who has a care of the child, to imply a prohibition on all forms of corporal punishment. Other international human rights bodies supporting prohibition of corporal punishment of children in all settings, including schools, include the European Committee of Social Rights and the African Committee of Experts on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. In addition, the obligation of member states to prohibit corporal punishment in schools and elsewhere was affirmed in the 2009 Cairo Declaration on the Convention on the Rights of the Child and Islamic Jurisprudence.